Hello, everyone. This is Mary, and welcome to the Retro Rewatch podcast, a podcast all about movies and television. So, the format of the podcast is going to be a recap of the episode, if it's a TV show or the movie, along with my thoughts and so on. And I just figured we would get right into it. So, hopefully, you enjoy the episode. For the first podcast episode, I thought I would discuss Are You Afraid of the Dark? I am, like I said, Canadian, so I grew up with the show. I couldn't exactly find when it first aired because it's kind of conflicting. You could find 92, but I think that's when it first aired in the United States. I think it first aired in 1990, but I was a little too young. I don't think I watched it in 1990. I probably watched it in like 91, 92. I watched it in YTV, youth television, and then the later seasons, like the 2000s, I probably watched on Family Channel. I don't think they aired on YTV. I might be completely wrong about that. And then the new series, which isn't my favorite just because I like the old format of the show with the campfire and each episode being its own story. Sometimes multiple episodes are part of the same arc. I just prefer the old series. That's just me. There's nothing against the new series. I've seen season 1, but not season 2, because I think season 1's available on Paramount Plus. I own the episodes of the original series on Vudu, and they're also on Paramount Plus, and I think they're available if you're anywhere outside of the United States, basically. So when I visit Canada, I'll have to see if they have the 2000 series or not. On YouTube, I think they're available. But anyways, we're going to talk about technically the first episode, because I think Tale of the Twisted Claw is the first episode of the show. I think it aired as like a Halloween pilot episode or something. Again, I'm not sure, I was a little too young for that. But there's an actor in both these episodes, so they connect. And you can tell the actor's a little older here than in that other episode. So yeah, we'll get into the technically first episode, which is Tale of the Phantom Cab. So even now, I still love the opening theme for the show. It's kick-ass, it's cool, it's a little creepy, you know. I think it's still a really cool opening, to be honest. Especially with the flame holding it up and Are You Afraid of the Dark? It looks more realistic than it does in the new series. I think the new series has like CGI or something from my recollection of it. It doesn't look as good as the classic, to be honest. Okay, so we open up with this campfire. Gary is introducing, well, he doesn't really introduce everybody, but we see an overview of the Midnight Society members. Gary's talking. We see Gary, who's kind of like the leader of the group, Kiki, Eric, David, Betty Ann, and Kristen. We find out that they like belong to different schools, have different friends, and so on. Each week, they team up, go around the campfire, tell a different story. So David, he's bringing Frank, who's kind of like the punk. Frank's blindfolded, and he's initiating Frank into the club or the Midnight Society. Frank has to tell a story, and the votes are unanimous, or the votes have to be unanimous, and if they are, Frank is into the club.
Okay, let's do it. Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story The Tale of the Phantom Cab.
Frank's story opens up. We see Denny and Buzz Crocker, their brothers, walking through the woods. Denny's the older one. This came out around the same time as Home Alone. Home Alone was 1990. This, if it came out in 1990, would have been the same year, obviously. So it's a little weird that the names aren't switched. I feel like that's the way it should have been. Denny just doesn't seem like he wants to be there. He's wearing jeans and a t-shirt and another shirt and a hat. And yeah, he's not exactly suited for walking in the woods. And then Buzz, for some reason, is the navigator. He's much younger. He's wearing, the attire. He's got the compass. He's got the canteen. He's wearing shorts, a backpack, etc. He's got the map, and so on. They don't seem to get along. Denny considers his younger brother a geek. Buzz just wants to prove things to his older brother, so he's the navigator. They're walking through the woods, and Denny just assumes they're lost. Buzz is looking at the map, they're kind of talking a bit, and then Buzz, he gets up and he spills water on the map, but Denny freaks out, saying that the map is ruined, but you can tell it's fine. You can still read it. Denny's just definitely overreacting to the situation. He just doesn't want to be there. I feel like he's just, pissed off at being here. His parents probably gave him, a punishment of some kind.
When you got us lost, cheeseball.
We're not lost!
Watch it! Great lame wad. Now we're lost and we can't read the map. You are such a loser.
I'm not a loser!
But, Denny calls Buzz a few choice nicknames in this episode, like Cheeseball, Loser. Later on, he calls him a Toad. Chaseball, Lamewad, Loser, Toad are some of the names he gives him. So, yeah, real nice older brother there. He's just such a dick. So Buzz notices the ridge they came over, but looks at the compass and is sort of confused. And then Denny's like, oh, watch out, you're gonna fall. And then he falls off the edge. He's dangling there. Denny has to save him. Denny even calls Buzz, a jerk because he has to save him. Such a touching moment between the brothers. So that's real nice. Then they kind of are continuing to be lost. They're walking around in circles. Denny asks Buzz if he even knows how to use the compass. I feel like that probably should have been established, right off the bat. That's probably something you should have confirmed he knew how to do if you're walking in the woods for the first... Well, I don't know if it's the first time. It's probably, near their house. I don't know. It doesn't really establish that. But Buzz says that they've been going south for hours, and they should have been in town. And then he shows how the needle is pointing north, because he assumes that's how a compass works. And then Denny realizes that Buzz is an idiot at this point, and he's holding his compass near his belt buckle, which is made of metal, and the needle is always going to point towards it no matter what way they're heading. And he calls Buzz worthless, and Buzz is like, no, I know where we are, I can figure it out. And then he starts taking off running, and they start to run for a bit, and then Buzz finds a trail. Denny, like the great older brother he is, threatens to pound him, and then they start seeing somebody walking towards them with presumably a flashlight. They are going through if it's a ranger or if it's a deranged killer with a hockey mask. Jason Voorhees.
Coming!
Maybe it's a ranger.
Or maybe it's a hiker that knows his way back to town.
I hope he's got a blanket. I'm freezing.
Me too.
Forget it. You can freeze.
Maybe it's a maniac killer in a hockey mask who's gonna slash us.
And all of a sudden, Flynn shows up. He's a traveler who's just like them. He tells them that they can follow him since he knows someone that can help them. And it's a doctor that lives in the woods. Flynn asks them also if they're good at riddles, and they're kind of confused, why are you asking this? And then they just kind of walk into the mist.
Though I suppose I couldn't be truly lost. I know these woods too well.
We far from town?
Farther than you know, my friend, farther than you know.
You follow me, and I'll lead you to someone who can help you.
Wait.
So, the good doctor, as Flynn calls him, lives in a really cute little stone shack in the middle of the forest, and it's glowing, because, it's dark at this point. It looks really cool. Denny even makes a joke if, the seven dwarfs live there, and Flynn tells them that before they ask the doctor for help, that they make sure they really need it, and how the price he charges is very steep. All of a sudden, they turn around and Flynn is gone, and then they hear everything from sobbing, moaning, wails, and laughter coming from the bushes. Denny says how it's Flynn, and then how it's a raccoon, and Buzz is like, no, that's definitely not what that is.
I'm sorry I got us lost, Danny.
Don't worry, I'll smack you when we get home.
What's that?
Flynn, I know it's you. He's trying to scare us.
He's doing a good job. That can't be him, too.
Probably a raccoon.
That's no raccoon. Danny, what's going on?
And then they rush up to the doctor's door, and he answers them, telling that they've made a grave mistake.
You boys have made a very grave mistake. I don't suppose either of you are any good at riddles.
And then he just like asks them if they're good at riddles and bursts out laughing like a completely sane person. I would not trust this dude if I ran to his door and he's just bursting out laughing like a crazy person. So he introduces himself as Dr. Vink with a v, and Buzz calls him Dr. Fink.
Vink's the name. Dr. Vink.
Dr. Fink?
Vink with a v.
And he tells them that people get lost all the time. This is like a normal situation, that people show up at his house and ask for help. Inside, he's got like a cool laboratory. He's got like a bunch of vials and jars and all sorts of shit. And he tells them he's dedicated his life to science, to flora and fauna. And then Buzz is like, oh, what's flora and fauna? Who's that? Like, yeah, okay. I mean, he is like around 11, so it's understandable he wouldn't know what that is. Then this is a running theme. People calling Dr. Vink, like not knowing what his name is a running theme in the episodes that he's in, because if you haven't seen the show, Aaron Tager plays him. He shows up multiple times in different episodes throughout the series, so that's really cool that they have like this recurring actor showing up as a recurring character, except in Tale of Laughing in the Dark, where he shows up as a different character completely. So yeah, and then another running theme throughout the episodes is that one character usually calls Dr. Vink a nutbag. that happens in like all of his episodes that I can remember. And then all of, Dr. Vink showing the boys, he brings out this brain of a wild boar and says it's a true wonder of nature. The boys look disgusted at first because, Buzz is like, ugh, and he goes, oh, cool. Like, that's kind of weird that he would react that way, like, ugh, and then, oh, cool. It's just weird. But the brain, according to Vink, gives off electrical impulses long after the body is dead and asks them, like, can you imagine if that energy could be harnessed? He then tells the boys he's a nutbag, meaning he heard what they were saying, and again, a common theme in his episodes that he's in, he usually says, I'm not a nutbag. Denny tells Vink that his parents are probably pretty worried about them, and Vink asks yet again if they're good at riddles. He asks them how far, basically he asks them a riddle, like how far can you walk into the woods, and Buzz figures it out immediately, and he answers with halfway. Denny says he wants to call their parents, and Vink tells them that they must answer another riddle or he will cut the phone line. With these huge ass shears he just happens to have, I mean, he's in the woods, so it makes sense, but yeah. He's pretty adamant that they answer his riddles. And then they're like, oh, okay, what's the catch? And Vink says, like, if they don't solve the riddle, they can just, leave. That's fine. Buzz tells Denny he's good at riddles, so Vink takes time to think of, like, the perfect choice. What could be, like, this really unsolvable riddle that they can't get?
Here we go. What is it that has no weight, can be seen by the naked eye, and if you put it in a barrel, it would make the barrel lighter?
When I was the age, like 7, when I watched this, I probably wouldn't have known what the answer to this was. Now I know what it is as an adult, but at the time, no. But perplexing so many people, I don't know. Spud doesn't know the answer. Like, he thinks about it, so Vink just is like, get the hell out of my cabin. Buzz begs for a riddle, because that one was way too hard, and Vink says that they failed, like, all the others. Then he tells them to take a left on the trail and follow to dirt road, and a taxi cab will show up, just, like, in the middle of these woods, somehow in the middle of the night, like, who knows what time it is, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then Vink tells them it shows up every night. So Denny asks Vink if he can use a phone, like, please let us use the phone, come on. And Vink says, yeah, sure, you gotta leave a specimen. and they're like, oh, what is a specimen? And he wants a body part. He tells Buzz that he's much smarter than his brother gives him credit for, and then he pulls out this jar with a hand in it, and they just go off running, which, again, is pretty understandable for these young boys to just, like, take off running out of this cottage. They want nothing more to do with Vink. Oh, yeah, and then when, like, Vink invites them in, he just, like, looks outside, making sure nobody's watching. Like, yeah, that was a weird part, too. Then we cut back to the Midnight Society, and Eric says how you can't include a riddle in your story that is unsolvable. And then the group are, like, kind of going back and forth if it's actually unsolvable, if you can solve it. And Frank tells them, like, hey, let me finish the story. We see the brothers are still lost, and then all of a sudden this cab shows up, like Dr. Vink said it would. Denny tells the cabbie to drive him into town, and then they, you know, their parents will pay for it, and the cabbie's like, oh yeah, I know you guys are good for it, and they realize it's Flynn. He gives rides to people that can't solve Dr. Vink's riddles. He was hoping that they would be able to solve it. He gave Vink a ride 40 years ago and offered a big tip if he could solve the riddle. Flynn couldn't solve it, so Vink I did what Buzz did. What Vink did, which is he took a specimen, which was his hand, so they saw that in the cabin. Denny tells Flynn, or he calls Flynn a liar. Flynn says he crashed into a big old tree and died before Vink got his hand, and he sorta died.
Hey, Dr. Vinks needs his specimens.
You're a lying sack. First of all, you're not that old.
Didn't I tell you? Before the good doctor got his specimen, had myself a nasty little accident. Crashed into this big old tree. You might say, I sort of died!
The noises that they heard from the bushes earlier in the episode are Vink's victims, and Flynn does this every night. He tells the boys that they have time to solve the riddle before crashing into the big old tree. Buzz is, like, trying to think about it, like, what is the answer to this riddle? And right before they crash into the tree, he solves it.
Wait till you see the explosion we're gonna make.
I got it! I know the answer!
What is it?
It's weightless, you can see it, and if you put it in a barrel, it'll make the barrel lighter.
Say it!
It's a hole! It's a hole in the barrel!
Here we go!
So Denny and Buzz, they fall to the ground, the cab, Flynn just disappear, and it takes like a few seconds before like they crash into the tree. Like Buzz answers the question. He answers it with a hole, and then it's like a few seconds before they like just are fine. They're gonna crash into the tree, and then it's solved. They celebrate, they hug, and they're like, get away from each other. And then Denny says how Buzz broke the curse, but he still calls him a loser. But he kind of jokes about it a little bit. I think maybe he gained a little bit of respect for his brother there. Then they see a car light and assume it's Flynn, or like, oh no, not again. And then this time it's a ranger. He's looking for the boys. He asks them like, oh, are you Buzz and Denny Crocker? Your parents and the whole town are like looking for you. Get in.
What are you boys doing here anyway?
Tell me something. How are you at riddles?
And Frank says that how no one ever saw Flynn or the cab again. And then when Denny and Buzz brought the police back to Vink's cottage, all that was left was a stone foundation that was covered in weeds. So he just disappeared, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. He just disappears. So the members of the Midnight Society decide to vote. Again, it has to be unanimous. Eric's really the only one that kind of like takes his time. You can tell he likes it, but he's kind of the dick of the group. He decides, like, yeah, everybody figures this is a great tale, gives Frank a thumbs up, and then Frank is in the group, and then he's allowed to remove his blindfold. And that's basically how the episode ends. Alright, so like I said, I watched the show when I was a kid. I don't really remember having much recollection of the episodes. Some really stick out in my mind. I definitely have favorites of the series. This is a great first episode, technically first episode of the series. You know, it's got elements, I mean, it's about a ghost. Vink, who knows what he was. He's kind of creepy. Who knows how many people actually, you know, he not really killed, but how many people technically died so that he could get his specimens. Because according to, what's his name, Flynn, he died, and then Vink took his hand from him after that, so I don't know. But, yeah, so far, first good episode. Not my favorite, but definitely still like it. I always kind of remember what happens, and the riddle and everything, so yeah, good first episode. So there's 4 main cast members of the story in this episode, and 3 of them have gone on to do other episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? The only one that didn't was Buzz. He was in an episode of Goosebumps, I can remember, but I don't remember what the episode was about, because I also watched Goosebumps as a kid. I just don't remember what the episode was. But Jason Tremblay, who plays Denny, he shows up in Tale of the Twisted Claw. Brian Dooley as Flynn, he shows up in Tale of the Silent Servant, which I completely forgot that he was in that. Aaron Tager plays Vink. He shows up as a carnival barker in Tale of the Laughing in the Dark. Jason Tremblay, he looks younger in Tale of the Twisted Claw than he does here. Tale of the Twisted Claw is technically the first episode of the series. It was the pilot episode. Again, I guess it aired in 1991 as a Halloween special, but I don't know, because then it says the series is from 1990, so it's a little confusing to me as like a fan of the show and not really being able to find specific dates of everything. But yeah, he shows up and he's much young. He's younger in that episode than he is here. But that is the tale of the Phantom Cab. I had a lot of fun watching it. I'm definitely interested in watching more episodes of the show. If you guys are curious about any, you know, if you guys have any requests, comments, whatever, you can leave them down below. This has been Mary, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Retro Rewatch Podcast. I'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.